Good evening. Hope you all had a great summer. Hopefully you got away for a little while when we had that little window where things opened up and we could get out of our basements. So hopefully you got a little bit of fun in before we get ready to go back to school. Hi, my name is Richard Rickey. Thanks for coming out tonight. I think one of the most important decisions we make as parents is how are we going to educate our kids? Are we going to homeschool our kids? Are we going to put them in the public school that we're assigned to based on our address? Private school, maybe? Now we have these things called learning pods. There are more choices now than there used to be when I first came here to Williamson County in 1988. I was transferred here by my healthcare company, Hospital Corporation of America. I was a hospital CEO, and they brought me here. I went to Houston first, came to Georgetown, and I loved it here. I came with one baby, a small child, had just been born, and later on I had another child. What that meant for us was the only school choice meant that the graduating class size was going to be around 650 kids. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you're looking for something bigger or something smaller, but that was the only choice really you had in 1988, except for a couple of private schools. But now we have more choices, and I want to talk to you about this school choice, what makes us different and unique, and my vision for starting this school. And you're going to learn tonight that we're a little different. And as you listen, you're going to be trying to assess, is this the right school for my son or daughter? Is it the right fit? And it's important that you really get a flavor for what we do, what makes us different and unique, because we're not the right school for every kid, but we might be the right one for your son or daughter. So thanks so much for coming out. My vision for the school really started, again, I was a hospital executive. I had a background in education. Everybody in my family, in their profession, you were either a preacher or a teacher. And I mean that literally. And I decided I would go into education maybe for a while, and I ended up changing my pathway, and I was the first one to kind of break away. And after doing education in the public schools up in Oklahoma City, for 3 years, I took a diversion and went into healthcare and worked my way up and became a healthcare executive. And then I landed here, and I started working with kids in the area, and there was a few things that I observed. One of the things I observed was, especially for boys, and not just boys, girls as well, but especially for boys, so many of the kids that I was coaching and getting to know through my kids were not excelling academically, and I knew they were capable. They were taking the easy route. And I thought, you know, that's not quite right. A lot of these kids, especially boys, are going to miss out if they don't get with it. That was one thing. Another thing that I became very concerned about was this study that I was reading. It's an international study. It occurs every 3 years, and it compares American students to other developed country students. And over the last several decades, our kids in America have been finishing somewhere between 25 and 29 in math, science, and reading. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not okay with me. And that seems to be a real concern, and this has been going on for decades. Now, this is somewhat controversial. There are people that look at this study and say, well, it's not a really fair study. Surely we're not that bad. Our kids aren't doing that bad. And then there's other people looking at the study going, no, this is absolutely accurate. We got to do something. And I don't want to get into arguing over is it accurate or not, but this is what I will say. Our kids, our sons and daughters are going to compete with kids from all over the world because we live in a global society and a global economy. And I know this for a fact because my daughter works for an international company, and she's in the human resources department, and her company literally has offices all over the world, and they sent her to Marseille, France for about 5 years, which was a wonderful place for me to go visit my daughter. I was like, this is really cool. And we went to Paris, we went to Rome. I said, hey, I'm coming again. So she was there for a while, and then she was sent to Ottawa, Canada, and then to Silicon Valley. She's been all over. I've met many of her coworkers. I've met many of her friends. They're all international. They come from all over. And she would tell me on phone calls, Dad, I just can't find enough American kids to fill these really great jobs that we have. So I know there's something that we need to deal with, and maybe our kids need some other options. So that's what kind of got me started and interested, those two things. And a lot of us felt like the traditional education system is not doing as well as it can, and that it's kind of like a cruise ship heading for an iceberg of low expectations. Well, a lot of us said something's got to change. And there's been a lot of different policies tossed around. Some have caught on, some haven't, some were too controversial. One of those ideas was give you a voucher, and with that voucher, you can go to any school you want to and the public dollar follows you, including private schools. That hasn't caught on in very many places. It's pretty controversial. There was another idea that did catch on. I started reading about this, and it caught on first in Minnesota, and that is the public charter school idea. And I want to explain that to you because this school comes out of that reform movement. We were birthed from that movement. And I started reading and hear about this. Oh, that's interesting, a public charter school. What makes that a little different? And the idea behind it is, let's carve out a part of the public education system, this cruise ship, this slow bureaucracy that's having a hard time adapting and quickly changing to our global society. Because of all the bureaucracy and how slow it is and all the layers you've got to work through to make changes, maybe we'll just have a carve-out group and we'll give to that carve-out group certain freedoms to be innovative and do things different. So that's the idea behind it. And it caught on here in Texas in 1995, and it had, the key objective was to encourage innovation and creativity. And that was the idea behind it when it came to Texas. Now I started reading about that, and I'm still a healthcare executive, but I started talking to other people who are educators because I also had a background, a lot of family members are in it. And I said, maybe there's a way we should start a school that might be a part of this. I had to learn more about that. Now, when you want innovation, and you're asking for people to be creative in the education field, we know, all of you that are in the business world and you've been innovative, you know it's hard, it's messy, and it's unpredictable, right? Not all innovations work. Sometimes you get this. Now that's not a picture of my son, but it could be, because that's the kind of thing my son did. So I had two kids. My firstborn was a girl. I was so excited to have her. We're still close today. And she was the easiest kid to raise. Great student, did everything I asked her to do. And we had certain habits and routines around the house. You know, we always had dinner together, and then I would read her bedtime stories, help her with her homework. And, you know, she's just a great kid. And did really well, excelled in school, never gave me any problems whatsoever. And I would always pat myself on the back and I would say, this parent thing is pretty easy. I got this figured out. 6 years later, my son came along, and I'm telling you, he was a totally different kid. Now, he's turned out just fine, but he was such a challenge because he didn't learn the same way. The things that worked with my daughter didn't work with him, and he took a different path. Now, interestingly enough, both of my kids ended up with business degrees. In fact, my son actually graduated from this school. This was the right school for him, and he'll tell you that today. But he's so different. Why would we think that one school model fits all kids in our neighborhood? Of course not. So we need more choices, and fortunately, we have more choices than we used to. So I look at charter schools as Coast Guard rescue boats, not big cruise ships. And as a rescue boat, we go around and we pick up kids that end up in the cold waters of apathy and low expectations and not meeting their purpose and not doing as well as they can. That's what we are. We're quick, we're nimble, we can change directions very fast when we need to, and that's what we've been doing. So I don't know if this is the right boat for your kid. You'll notice it's not that big. We're not for everybody, but let's explain it. Okay, now you know we are a public charter school, but there's still a lot of misunderstandings about what it is. So let me make sure you get it, because this is really important. The first one is we are a public school. We're just a little different type of public school. It also means if your son or daughter comes here, they're going to participate in the same Texas curriculum that's required of all public schools. Same graduation plans. They also are going to have to take the STAR exams. We get rated academically just like all the other public schools. We are a public school. There's no tuition to come. If we have a seat available, you apply, you can get in. We don't ask a lot of questions. We just ask you to make sure you know what we're all about, to make sure it's the right fit. There are three types of operators that can operate a public charter school in Texas. You can be a Texas public university and operate a charter school in Texas. There's a couple of those. You can be a traditional school district. There are some traditional school districts that have operated open charter schools, but by far the numerous charter schools are really run by not-for-profit corporations. So across Texas, almost every charter school that you'll check into, behind it is a not-for-profit corporation that was incorporated to go and to apply and to get a charter approved, and that's what Orenda Education is. So I started Orenda Education in 1995 when I heard about this reform movement, and I spent several years researching it. I got a lot of really smart people together, a lot smarter than me in education, two people that had doctorates in education, and when I talked to them and interviewed them about my vision and what I'd like to see happen with a school that's different and unique, we just, sometimes you get with people that you work with and you're in sync and you go, you know what, we share the same values. We think we're going to get along together as a business partner. Those are the people you want to work with. And I found those kind of people to help me put together the application, because you can't just open up a charter school. You have to get approved in Texas. And here it's the State Board of Education. Once a year, they accept applications. They have a limited number of charter schools they're going to allow in Texas. And every year, more applications are rejected than are accepted. But we went through that whole process around 2000, 2001, and fortunately, we eventually got approved. But they asked me during the process, well, what is it you're going to do that's different and unique, and how do we know it's going to work? So I had to explain our philosophy. It's the Circle of Courage philosophy. I don't have time tonight to go into the details of it. You can read this more in detail online. But let me just say it focuses on 4 key values. First of all, a school where kids feel like they belong. I want to make sure that we've got staff and teachers who love the kids walking into their classroom and say, you belong here. I'm glad you're here, Richard. We're going to have a great year. And kids go, I like this school. I fit here. People accept me the way I am. Mastery. We want every kid to leave here being good at something. I don't care if you're the funniest kid in the class. That's mastery. Everybody knows it. Richard's the funniest kid in our class. Great, maybe he's going to be a comedian. But without mastering one thing, most of our kids won't try something else because they're too timid and afraid. So if we find that they're the funniest and then we brag on them for being the funniest, they might try some other things. Maybe they'd start to give math a little more effort, right? Maybe they're the best athlete. Maybe they're best in science. Independence. We want our kids to take ownership over their learning. You're going to hear how we do that in the breakout session, so we're a little different that way. And generosity is the final value. We want our kids to understand how important it is that they're kind, that they're generous. And we're going to ask you, if you get in, that you as a parent also become generous. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Now, I know there's other values that are important, but these are the 4 we talk about all the time. We emphasize these because we think they're critical. If we get these 4 right, kids are going to be fine. So I then told the board, okay, this school is going to be for kids that are college bound. We're not saying every kid has to go to college. There are some good jobs out there that do not require a 4-year college degree. This school is designed for kids that intend to go to college because they need the professional degree. We will get them prepared for that, trust me. They'll be ready. Maybe they can knock it out in 3.5 years, right? And with tuition the way it is, you don't want mistakes. You don't want kids to go to the wrong school, not have the right major. Oh my goodness, it's sad to see all these kids walking away with too much debt, not a good job prospect. So we're going to help them find the school that's the right fit. We'll talk more about that later. You want a smaller school. I don't know if 125 kids is too many or not enough, but we look at about 100 kids for our elementary, about 125 in middle school, and we've capped it at no more than about 175 at the high school. We will never get bigger than that because that's what we told everybody we're going to do. And you'll hear more about how we do our breakouts in just a little bit. Is that the right size school? So athletic and artistic. Here's what was unique. When I started this school, there were, I think at the time, around 37 other charter schools between Georgetown and San Marcos. But none of them were a member of the University Interscholastic League, offering both academic competitions, fine art competitions, and athletic competition. And I said, we're going to start a school in Williamson County that is a member of the UIL And we're going to have athletics and fine arts and academic competitions. Now, if you're a kid and you don't care about athletics and you don't believe we should be spending any money on athletics, this is not the school for you. And that's okay. But nobody else was offering that. And so we said, you know, if you want a top-notch, high academic charter school, and you can't find a school like that that also offers athletic, how sad is that? So we've been doing that. You'll hear about that a little bit later. We've had a lot of success with it. So we're proud of that. And you want an innovative, student-centric instruction. You'll hear about that. So the board says, you know, Mr. Rickey, we like your philosophy. We like your idea. We're going to grant you a charter. Oh, but by the way, we're going to hold you to a higher standard. Here's the deal. 3 strikes and you're out. What that means in Texas is if your charter school fails 3 years in a row, academically or financially or a combination, you are automatically shut down in Texas. Did you know that? Do you know if you're a poor performing public school, you can survive forever. Hardly ever get shut down. In fact, there's been numerous charter schools that have been shut down because their innovation did not work. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good that somebody tried something different. Okay, now we know it didn't work. But we're held more accountable than a traditional public school. And we do very, very well academically, and you'll read more about that, hear more about that tonight. So we're given more freedom. We can cap how many kids we're going to take. We can set and establish what our curriculum's going to be and what our mission is. But we're also given less money. What do you mean? Well, and this is important that you understand, because if you get in here and you're a part of this school community, you need to understand what's making it work for us. It's our parents buying in to what makes us different and unique, appreciating our difference and uniqueness, and saying, I'm going to make sure you've got what you need to be successful, to continue, so my daughter and my son can be successful. Charter school funding is different than traditional schools. There's a different pot of money. $11,665 is about what you get per student per year in a traditional public school. A public charter school only gets a little bit under $10,000 annually. Now, what's the biggest difference? Here's the biggest difference. Public charter schools have no taxing authority. We can't tax you. If we're struggling financially, we can't go to the taxpayer and say, we've upped your rates. Has anybody looked to see how much you're paying in taxes that goes to your local independent school district? I have. Mine's almost $4,000 that the local independent school district gets. Charter schools don't get any of that. So we have to do with less money. Now, you all know that the 2 options you have, if all of a sudden, because of COVID, one of you is a husband and a wife loses their job or somebody gets furloughed, all of a sudden, you've got less money. What do you do? Now, let's pretend the government's not sending you a check, okay? Let's pretend that you just really don't have more money. Well, you make cuts. You reduce your budget. So that's one option, and that's what most charter schools do. So they may not offer athletics or a very good athletic program or a strong fine arts program, or they pay their teachers a little bit less. Look, I've been here in Williamson County a long time. I said, no, we're going to take a second approach, and that is we're going to charitable fundraise the difference, because this was my thought process. I knew I, as a parent, was more than willing to make up that $1,200 less funding gap that my kid's going to get in a charter school, and I can make a donation to a 501c3 Orenda education. I know exactly where that money's going, and it's a tax deduction. To me, it was like, I'll bet you there's going to be hundreds of families that'll do everything they can to help the school make up that funding gap so we're on equal footing when you know your son or daughter's in the right place. So that's the way we've approached it, okay? And we are different than any other charter school in what we do there. And there it goes back to our generosity, okay? That's really important to us. And then we ask our people, look, if you come here, just think about this giving pyramid. We ask you to fit in somewhere. Maybe you give 1% to 2% of your adjusted gross family income. Some of our families give $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year. Some give $200 a month, that's $2,400. You'll hear more later about what we do for those people. But because of them, because we have buy-in from so many of our families, we're doing some incredible, incredible things. And of course, it helps us with our facilities, which are not the most important thing. You're going to go, wow, this is a really nice facility. You have no idea where we came from. We started, when my son was here, we were in portable classrooms. We had porta-johns. And we have built this over time as people have been more generous. Now, we didn't fundraise all the buildings. Of course, we took on some debt, but we make sure we can finance the debt. We've done it in a very slow, methodical way because the most important thing is our people. It's our teachers, it's our support staff, and it's our programs. And then if we can have nice facilities, that's great. Fortunately, we've been able to do that over time. So hopefully you'll fit somewhere into that, and that's what we're all about, promoting courage in our students. Okay,